If you say that Jesus was begotten, as the Bible clearly does, you're saying he was created, because to beget means, in English even, and certainly in Greek, it means to procreate. It means to bring into existence. So once you know that Jesus was procreated, and the two verses I would give you right away would be Luke 1:35, where the miracle effected by God supernaturally in the womb of his mother Mary, it is said that that miracle makes Jesus the Son of God. So if you want to know how is Jesus the Son of God, Luke 1:35 has the exact answer you need. He was procreated in the womb of his mother. You can't be human unless you begin in the womb of your mother. You cannot be human if you're older than your own mother or older than your own father. That's just impossible. The Bible is not that difficult. So the answer is quite clearly the procreation, the begetting of Jesus was in Luke 1:35, where Luke precisely says this. It's precisely because of the miracle that Jesus is the Son of God. And the other verse you need in your notes would be Matthew 1:20, where Matthew said, what is begotten, procreated, that is, in Mary, in her womb, is from God. It's a sheer miracle. So Jesus has no human father, has a human mother, of course. Adam, of course, had no human father either. So this is a unique son. Jesus is a human being, the beginning of a new type of human being, initiated by his procreation, his begetting, which means coming into existence. So that's creation. That's not very difficult. Messiah has to be human to qualify. So if you believe in a Messiah who is not human, you think he's really there from eternity along with God the Father, you don't have the right Messiah. You need to read 135 of Luke, Matthew 120, and see that the miracle was that God created, procreated, brought into existence a unique human being, not just an ordinary man. Absolutely not. How many men do you know who don't have human fathers? The answer is none. So this is an exceptional man. But if he's not man, if he's really God dressed up as a man, then you have the wrong Jesus. That's simply a fact.
On Matthew 120, as you can see there from the
Hmm.
translations, they have the child in Mary conceived by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So most translations invariably have for the Greek there the word
Yes,
conceived. Actually, the literal standard version has begotten.
that's
So
correct.
why are these translations,
Hmm.
most of them not showing that
Yeah.
procreated word, which is the old
Well,
antiquated
because they're
begotten?
a form of crime scene. They're trying to hide from you the fact that that's a begetting there. So that literal standard version is correctly translated. It doesn't say conceived there. Now, it was a conception, that's true. But this is the activity of a father. It's the father who begets and the mother who conceives. The translations, many of them are hiding from you a stupendous truth, namely that Jesus was fathered, procreated in the womb of Mary, his mother. That's a miracle. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
so tell us about
good.
that word translated conceived. Is that wrong
Yeah.
then?
Well, it's misleading because it's not just a conception, it's a coming into existence, a begetting. Yenithen is from yenao, about being begotten. It means to father. It's what the father does. And we know that the woman conceives. That's certainly true. But there it is, yenao. It means to beget, to procreate. Expressly in Matthew 1:20, this is the activity of the father, creating, procreating, fathering, begetting, bringing into existence, procreating the one who is Jesus, the Messiah. That's the miracle of his virginal begetting, I would call it. Let's start calling it a virginal begetting. It's a miracle. So those translations are hiding, not too unobvious way.
Right. So the root word
Yes,
is yenao,
of course.
and I highlighted there one of the
Yes,
Thayer's Greek lexicon,
good,
properly of man begetting children.
good.
And I think it helps to say procreated because
Yes,
the English word beget or begotten is really antiquated. No one
yes.
really says that in
No,
common
that's
English
exactly right.
today. Basically, here, Matthew is telling us the child
Yes,
in Mary is a procreation
Yes,
by the power of God's Spirit.
exactly.
And of interest, a couple of verses earlier in 18,
Hmm.
that's why Matthew says the Genesis, not just birth or beginning, but the origin
Exactly.
of Jesus.
Hmm.
So that ties into that, I guess.
Oh, absolutely it does, yes. If anybody is thinking about the Trinity, they should realize that you find no Trinity in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. People try to find it in John, but you might ask yourself, why, if the Trinity is so important to people, why did Matthew not have a word to say about that? Why did Luke say nothing at all about a triune God? So that should get people thinking, what is the truth here? Go back to those good verses about the genesis of Jesus, and there you've got the beginning of this unique human person who is the Messiah.
So according to Matthew, he uses the word Genesis twice,
Yes,
by
he
the
does.
way, in
Mm,
chapter 1,
yes.
the beginning of
Hmm.
account,
Hmm.
and there's the word Genesis too,
Good.
which is once again hiding in the translations
It
because most
is.
translations have birth.
Yes. Yes, they
Well, it's
do.
not a birth, but it's origin.
Indeed.
This word is very popular from the first book of the Bible, of course.
Yes. Yes.
And in the Greek translation, it's interesting that the family tree of Adam, I believe,
Yes. Yes.
the same word is used, I think, in Genesis
Right.
3 or 4 or
Of
something.
course.
It says the
Yes.
Genesis. In other words, this is the origin of the lineage of
Yes.
Adam. And then
Yes.
it gives the son. So, what does this do, Anthony, to the so called eternal generation of the son?
Well, the eternal generation is actually a contradiction in terms. To be eternally generated would mean that you have no beginning. And if you have no beginning, you haven't begun. You've never even got off the ground. There is no Christ at all. So it's highly dangerous to speak about a son who was eternally brought into existence. That would mean he never really came into existence. He was always being brought into existence, but it really never happened. So that's just a very confusing thing derived from the church fathers, who around the 3rd and 4th centuries developed a whole new concept by which they turned the Son of God, the one that we're looking at here, the one procreated, the one beginning to exist in Mary, they turned him into an eternally begotten, which is absolutely not something that preachers preach on because it's confusing for them, and the public normally doesn't ask its pastor to preach on these great issues, and so the information is not out there. But we've given it to you this evening. By all means, check that carefully. Matthew 1:20.